4.2. The Colour Palette. When I'm designing book covers for clients, one of my ways of thinking when it comes to colour is that in a world full of moths, always be the butterfly. What I mean by that is don't follow the crowd. For example, if all horror book covers are black, red and white, try a different palette. Yes, I've heard the same thing over and over again, that duff advice from so-called experts that really don't know what they're talking about, parroted back to me regularly. Follow reader expectation, which is about the most wrong-headed thing I've ever heard. Firstly, you're insulting the reader, saying a zombie cover in blue and orange is going to confuse them too much. You're basically calling them thick. Secondly, you're saying a readership that's been brought up on pork and beans doesn't possibly want to eat some lovely seafood pasta. Their palate can't possibly handle something so fancy. It's utter piffle. What I say is, give your readers a tasty eye treat. Plus, standing out against your competition like a butterfly will give you a commercial advantage. I could go into all the psychology behind it, such as the von Restorff effect and the Gestalt principles of perception, but suffice to say, our brains are trained to spot and notice things that are different. Different things catch our attention. I'm probably going to create a more in-depth video about this subject, so get signed up to my extra videos subscription so you don't miss that. So how does MidJourney handle color? Well, there's some good news and bad. It handles color amazingly, a lot better than the competition. That's the good news. The bad news is, as we've already touched on, if we're using style referencing, it will always pull colors from those reference images. But there is a simple solution to that. Choose style references with great colors. In fact, this can be used to our advantage, which we'll come on to in a little while. I'm going to show you a little test. Let's generate an image which is simply a painting of a cottage. Result, rather drab and muted palette. They're pretty pictures, but not exactly eye-catching. Easy to pass by when scrolling through images of people's books. Now let's run the same thing again and use 3 colors added to the end of the prompt. A painting of a cottage, yellow, pink, orange. All these images are a lot more arresting and more likely to stop a potential reader in their tracks. Let's get really crazy now and try something else. A painting of a cottage, gold, purple, green. And I know what you're going to say here, but my cottage in my story isn't that color. It's literally not correct. But as a book cover designer, I'd counter with, who says a book cover has to be literal? Or even go one further and say, let's forgo being correct for catching the eye, which is an important function of cover design. Being right isn't. Readers don't care if the cottage isn't that color in the story. You've suckered them in with your crazy colors. I'm yet to see a review on an Amazon book which says, I loved the story, so touching, but I was rather expecting the cottage to be pink, but it wasn't mentioned once in the story. Only 2 out of 5 stars. I'll say it again, book covers don't need to be literal. Nothing exists, it's all made up, it's all a fiction. Good art takes license. And book cover design is an art. And as you see, MidJourney is fantastic at resolving colors, which is why I ask on the checklist, if your story was 3 colors, what would they be? I didn't mean the book cover, but the story itself in an abstract sense, so that you could throw them into the mix and see what comes out of experimenting. Let's try that with one of our book covers from the last section. Without the color, let's just prompt for a simple illustration of a rogue AI that haunts people's social media feeds with their own past. All these images come out in dark greys and reds, sort of dull and boring, something that everyone else is probably doing because they're not thinking about color. But now let's add chartreuse, blue-yellow, and see what it makes us. Way more eye-catching. Or even let's take that prompt and rather than using colors, let me have a look for the brightest images I have uploaded to my gallery and use them for style references and try that prompt again. remembering to hit the little paperclip icons. These might be a bit extreme, but potential readers are not going to pass this cover by. It's impossible, because craziness is somewhat eye-catching from what I've seen over the last 13 years as a book cover designer. Eye-catching is always a commercial advantage, and MidJourney gives us the possibility of this advantage to stand out against the many book covers on Amazon that just use the same drab or predictable palettes time after time. In short, everyone turns up to the party wearing the same school uniform, and no one wants to dance with them. And we don't have to be completely wacky to stand out, though, if everyone is wearing the same, but a little more bravery will confound and catch the eye of potential readers. It adds intrigue. And this is how I like to think about colour. We can subvert some cliches with it. And as a final tip, if you don't have specific colours in mind, MidJourney is also really good at understanding the words colour palette. For example, let's try our prompt again with acid colour palette, and with rusty colour palette, or even vivid colour palette. In fact, you can stick pretty much any word in front of colour palette. You'll find some of my favourites in a list below. So to recap this section: 1. Be a butterfly in a land of moths. 2. Book cover colours don't have to be literal, that's just boring. 3. Look for interesting colours with your style reference material. 4. We can use the words colour palette in our prompts. And finally, 5, and I'm going to repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Be brave, because what catches the eye actually sells. Next up, we're going to take things in a different direction. See what I did there? Sorry,